G'day everyone. All right, let's jump in and start creating projects in Simply Business. We're now really getting into the heart of Simply Business, which is your project management. So I click on projects, and what we see here is similar options to what we have in quotes, where we have the ability to create a new project, we have the ability to filter our projects to include the archive projects, and then we have the ability to search for a project. And we have our list of projects here on the left, but we have some other options here, which is a list of recent projects, which will always appear in order of when they were most recently worked on. So not necessarily the most recently added, but whatever project you most recently worked on, that will appear at the top, going down to the older projects that you've worked on. And then we have a list of recent discussions, where if anybody has commented or made a discussion on any project, we will see the recent ones down here. In our example, using Jane from ABC Mowers, I think we called it, who was interested in our services of providing a logo. We took her through the sales process and she agreed to our quote. And so now we're going to create the project and start working on the logo for Jane. So I'm going to click on New Project. I'm going to call the project name Logo. It's our first one, so 001. I'm going to give it a unique alias. So what this is for is when your customers log into the front end of Simply Business called @simpli.business, each of the projects will need a unique alias, and so you can set that here. It will automatically be created off the name of the project, but if you're not happy with that, you can change it to whatever you like. And then we set the customer. We only have one customer, which is ABC Mowers, so we'll select them. We then select what stage the project is up to, one of 5 standard stages from initiation right up to closure. Well, we're starting the project, so we'll pick initiation. And then we'll start the project today. We're going to finish it next Friday, and that's when it will be due. Okay, now we move on to the billing section. So not every project will necessarily have billing. You might have some internal projects or some projects for customers where you're not charging, but for most projects you will have billing. So what you can do is choose how this project is going to be charged. The first option is by time and materials. So that will be basically we just charge for every hour worked on plus any materials that are required for this project. Now we have 3 options under time and materials. The first is the team member rate. Now you might remember in the second tutorial, we went through how to set up team members and how to set their billing rate. And that's the rate at which we bill the customers for their time. And so that's what will be used here if we set team member rate. We have another option, which is the customer rate. And that's where you have the option in each customer to set how much you're going to bill them per hour. So you might override the standard billing rate of your staff and use a specific rate for that customer. Now this could be handy if you set up, say, a 2 or 3 year contract with the customer and have an agreed price that you're going to charge them for that period of time. And so no matter how much you start charging your team members out, maybe at a higher or lower rate, that customer will always receive that billing rate. And then finally, you can choose to set a project rate where it will ignore both the team member and the customer rate and just use whatever rate you set for this project. We then have the option to set the rate at a fixed fee. And actually that's what we're going to do for this project. And I'll come back to that in a second. And finally, we have the ability to set a recurring rate. And that's where we will set a monthly fee that will be charged. This is like on a retainer basis, where you might charge $1,000 a month for a certain number of hours per month. And the customer is billed that on a recurring basis. But in our example, we gave our customer ABC Mowers a fixed price of $800. So I'm going to go and put $800 in here because that's how much the client agreed to pay for this logo. And then I can choose whether or not I want this project to appear at Simply Business. Again, this is the customer portal where your customers can log in and see their projects, but not necessarily all of them. So if you don't want the customer to see this project, you can leave that turned off. And then I can give this project a description. So I'm going to call it logo design. Now, normally what you would do is put the full project brief in here, but I'm just going to, for this example, leave it as logo design. Now, I am not going to go ahead and hit save here. What I'm going to do is show you a better way to create a project, and that is to do it from the quote itself. Now, we created the quote from the lead, and we can create a project from the quote. So I go back to quotes, and I find our quote here for ABC Mowers. Open it up, go down to actions and click create project. Are you sure you want to create a project? Yes, I am. And now Simply Business will take all the information from the quote and transfer it over to this project. We already have the name, logo design. We can give it a unique alias of logo. We already have the customer, ABC Mowers. We're going to have to choose the stage because that wasn't on the quote. And we're going to have to put in this information such as when we're going to start it. So we'll start it today. And what did we say? We'll end it Friday and due on Friday. But you'll see the billing has automatically been set because it came from a quote which had a fixed price. We've already got the fixed price selected for us and the amount put in for us. So that just made life easier. And we also have the description, design a logo for your business. That came across from the quote as well. So a lot of the information has been filled out for us. That makes it much easier. And I'm just going to hit done because I want to go back to the list. So now we see we have our project here. We have it under the recent projects. There's been no discussion yet about it. And that is how to set up projects in Simply Business. Now you might be thinking, hang on a second, that's pretty light on for project management. If that's the heart of Simply Business, why there's not much to it? And you'd be correct, because most of what we do in a project is not on the project itself, but on the tasks that are associated with that project. So here under tasks, we see these 4 tasks that have been created automatically from the quote because they were the 4 items we were quoting on. And none of these have been associated to anybody yet, so not been associated for somebody to work on, and they're all flagged as the status of get to it at some point, so they haven't been allocated when they're going to be worked on. And so most of your managing of a project from initiation right through to closure is actually done via the tasks, not the project itself, which is why it seems a bit light on just to manage the project, but it's actually mostly through tasks. And we're not going to cover tasks in this tutorial. There's going to be a whole tutorial on tasks because that's quite involved. And tasks actually are across the system, not just in projects. And they can be built out. They create invoice items. It's quite involved. So we'll have to spend more time going through tasks. But what I will do is go through the other associated data that we have with a project. So just like with quotes, we have files where you can upload files to this project. Now I mentioned in the quotes tutorial that you could upload the final logo design in the files against the quote and then share that with the customer. That doesn't really make a lot of sense since the quote's already been finalized. It makes more sense to upload it against the project and share it from the project. And that way, if you want to go back and find it, you would go to the project about logo design and then you would find the file there. We have all the support tickets that have been raised against this project. Now, it's a little bit hard to come up with an example of a support ticket request that would be for a logo design, but let's see how we go. Let's say you've gone through the first draft, the second draft, and the final design, and at each stage the client's been involved and they've been happy, and you provide them the final result. They start putting on their business cards and their website, and then 2 weeks later they raise a support ticket that says, we misspelt the company name on the logo. I don't know how you could misspell ABC Mowers, but let's say it happens. Well, then they would use the system to raise a support ticket, and then you get in contact with them and resolve the problem. Any discussions about the project can be put here under discussions. And we also see all the time that has been allocated to this project through timesheeting and against tasks. Again, a lot of the project management is actually on the tasks that are associated with the project, not the project itself, but all time that has been logged against each task against this project will be listed here. And so that is projects in Simply Business.